1, 2, 3. All right. I think it's working. So one of the things that we're going to talk about today, and you guys, please do me a favor, and whoops, there we go. That's so much better. I don't have my wireless, so we're running off the microphone of the camera here. So you guys got to be quiet because it's going to pick up everything. We're talking about perspective, and perspective is actually a very simple thing, and yet at the same time, it's something that took our ancestors thousands of years to figure out. We have our cavemen drawings from 5,000 years ago, 4,000 years ago, but the first time that we started seeing perspective in artwork was in the 1400s. 1300s. I forget exactly when, but about 600-700 years ago. So it's a relatively new concept, at least in the history of art and the way we're drawing things. But what's really important to understand is we have objects that are three-dimensional, like said box. Okay. What we're going to talk today about is we're going to talk about one-point perspective, and one-point perspective is really simple. If the flat surface of a box or any three-dimensional object is facing you head-on, okay, like this, head-on, okay? If it's facing you head-on, you're in one-point perspective. As soon as it turns to a corner, you're in two-point perspective, okay? So what we're going to focus on today is one-point perspective. Now, let's talk about a couple of things. Number one, when we're starting to draw a perspective drawing, one of the first things we have to do is we have to have a horizon line. What is, for real, what is a horizon line? Somebody give me a definition of a horizon line while I'm drawing it really quickly. What's a horizon line? Or what is the horizon? How about I ask it that way? What is the horizon? Yeah.
It's like a horizontal line that you can see over buildings or water or something that's from the sun.
Okay. You know what? I think you're going there. But what would, you've always been told, probably in elementary school, what's the horizon line is where the sky and the earth meet, right? Now, we all know this, that they don't actually touch, correct? Okay? The sky and the earth don't actually touch. So what is the horizon in actual physical definition? Some of you probably have never thought of this before. Do you know what it is? It's the curve of the earth. It's where the earth, basically, as it's curving, falls away. It's the last edge of where the earth is falling away, and you can't see what's beyond that. If you go up in an airplane at 38,000 feet, you can actually see the earth curve a little bit. And from that height, you can see a long distance if it's really clear. However, when you're standing on the ground, I think they say that at best you can see like 10 or 11 miles. That's about it. And then the earth starts to curve down away from you, and you can't see anything beyond that, not because of distance, but because the earth is actually dropping away from you. It's kind of a weird thought when but it is. And the earth, we know the earth is round, which is, my wife went to go visit her sister in Beijing. My sister-in-law lives in Beijing last summer, and 2 summers ago? Yeah. Well, anyway. The way that they get to China, the fastest way to fly to China, is they actually make a C. They go up over the pole and then come back down. Because if you're thinking about it in a globe standpoint, the globe gets smaller in circumference as it goes up, right? The distance around longitudinally is smaller. The circumference gets smaller as it goes up. So it actually would take longer to go around the big part of the Earth, almost closer to the equator, than it is to actually go up to where it's smaller near the North Pole and then come back down. It's actually a shorter distance. Isn't that weird? And you'll see that when you see airplane plots, even in Europe, they go up and down. It's actually faster that way. You use less fuel, you go smaller distance. That's weird, okay? But that's what perspective is really about. Is it's about that kind of an illusion of distance. So when we're talking about perspective, one of the first things that I always like to start drawing, or one of the first things you need, is a vanishing point. I'm going to explain a vanishing point in just a second. But I'm just going to, we're at 1 point perspective, so how many points do you think we're going to have? Yeah, 1. Okay. Geniuses. You guys are so smart. So now what I'm going to do is I always like to start off with a road, just because it kind of gives you, it's going to give you guys a sense of where things go. So I'm just going to start by drawing a road, and I'm going to ask you a couple questions about it. It could be railroad tracks, it doesn't matter, but I always like doing this. Okay, so you guys all see that? Okay, very beautiful road. Okay, yes, I'm an art teacher. But let me ask you a question. I drew the road. Both the lines went back to the vanishing point. If this road was actually 11 miles long, which there's a road in Chicago that's been in several movies. It's like 15 or 17 miles long. It goes right through downtown Chicago. And if you look down it, the road disappears. It actually does exactly what I drew here, where the points actually come together. And it looks like the road ends, but it doesn't. It just keeps going. The road's so long. Do the sides of the road actually connect? No, they stay the same distance apart, right? So how come when we look at a photograph or we look at a drawing like this, how come the road touches, where the two sides of the road touch? Yeah, Josh?
Because of the way our eyes see things.
Okay, you're exactly correct. So what's happening to the road as it's going back in space? What happens to any object as it gets further away from you? It appears to get... Yes, smaller. Exactly. So if I take a basketball and I sit it right in front of me, or I put it right in front of me, or let's even just say a baseball. Okay, here we go. I take a baseball, which is, pretty small. I put it right in front of my face, it's going to be bigger than your head. Is it really bigger than your head? No. Okay, it's like that game that did, squishing your head, where you squish people's heads with your fingers. Your fingers are like this big. But if you put it right up against your face, the size difference, okay, is what does that. This is what happens with perspective. And let me just say this, I want everybody to understand this right now. All of perspective is based on that principle. Things get smaller as they go away from you. If you don't remember anything else from today, from this little demo, you remember that is the principle that perspective is basically built upon. It's that things get smaller as they go away from you. They also, when you're drawing them, tend to move up the page. So as you draw things and they're further away from you, they go up towards the horizon line because we're flattening space. Now, so let's just draw a box, which is going to eventually become a house, in perspective. So I've got my road here, and we're just going to start. You must use a ruler for your sketchbook assignments, please. Do not eyeball this. You won't do a very good job, especially if this is one of your first times ever drawing stuff in perspective. Some of you might be able to eyeball it pretty well, and I'm going to let go of the ruler after a little bit here because of time constraints, but you should not do that. Why should you not do that? Because most of you you won't be able to do things straight up and down. So I'm going to draw a box here. And one of the things that's really important to note about one-point perspective is that all the lines, see that one's not very good, should be parallel. The horizontal line should be parallel to the horizon line, and all your vertical lines are perpendicular to the horizon line. Now that will not necessarily be true with further versions of like two-point perspective and so on and so forth. That's not going to be true. But here with 1 point, it is true. So parallel to the horizon line. Close that off. Okay, so now I've got the front side of my box. And this is the key in one-point perspective, is that the front side of your box is facing you. Therefore, you draw it like a regular square. You don't have to do any perspective. But by its very nature, the whole point of perspective is now anything that's going away from you, now it has to become smaller. So this is where our vanishing point comes into play. So from the corners of the box, I'm going to draw a line all the way back to the vanishing point. And there you can see I now have a three-dimensional box, right? But the way I drew it right now is the box basically is infinitely long, right? Because as of right now, the box is going all the way back to the vanishing point, correct? So I have to end it. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to draw 2 more lines right about here. Okay, make sure I'm roughly parallel to the horizon line there. And there. And now, just to illustrate this so that you guys can see it better, I'm going to go over my box with a Sharpie marker. Notice I'm not using a ruler. I'm breaking the rule for time's sake here. Oops, that went off a little bit. So please use the ruler. Now, I think you can see where the box is versus how the lines go. You want to see that? All right, so that's a good illustration as to how it works. Now, let's say I wanted to turn this into a house by adding details like a window, doors, that kind of stuff. Here's the rule. Anything that goes away from you gets smaller and therefore goes back to the vanishing points. So what I can do, and now I'm going to stop using the ruler so you have to forgive me, okay? What I can do is if I were drawing a window here, I would just draw a regular square. See that? However, if I were drawing a window or a door on the side of the house, the lines would go straight up and down, but the door itself is going back in space. So now, I have to make sure that it also goes in perspective. See that? Let me Sharpie marker it in for you guys so it's a little bit easier for you all to see. So our window on the front is basically just flat. But anything on the sides have to go back to in perspective. Does that make sense? Can you see that a little better now? Ignoring the lines, okay? These rules can apply for anything, and I mean anything. So let's say I wanted to draw a car, okay? A car is not as simple as a cube. And so most people would look at a car and go, there's no way I can draw that in perspective. That's not necessarily true. Just break it down into a cube. Again, forgive me, I'm not going to be using my ruler here, but I'll get pretty close. So let's say I've got a driveway here, okay? And the driveway is going to be in perspective. And in that driveway, I'm going to draw a car. So I'm actually going to erase this top line yet because I think that might get in the way of my car. So now I'm going to start with my front face of the car. And let's just say, there it is. Going back into perspective here. Now, you might say that doesn't look like a car, Mr. Weisbrod. Well, of course it does, and I'm not done yet, thank you very much. Okay? But hopefully some of you can see. I've just drawn a cube, right? But it's a flat cube. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start adding some of these details to it. So like, let's say here's the trunk. And then we're going to bring in the passenger compartment here. Now I can erase some lines to kind of get it set up, okay? Doors. And wheels. Now the funny thing about the wheels is, don't forget, wheels are three-dimensional too. So now you're going to be seeing the sides of them. Let me ink this in really quickly so you can see. Now, it's a very boxy car. We'll just call it a 1980s Volvo and be done with it. But what I want you to see is how the perspective remains the same regardless of what the object is made out of, or how many, you know, facets it has, or how complicated it is. The basic idea of a car still fits into perspective. Everybody see that? It doesn't matter. So anytime you're faced with drawing something complicated that needs to be in perspective, the best thing to do is to start by putting it into a cube. And once you do that, then you should be really pretty much all set. So very quickly, again without a ruler, so I apologize. Let me just I'm going to draw a garage. So up. Here's my garage. Going back to perspective. Okay. It's a short garage. In fact, why not? Let's go for the full house effect here, right? Now I'm going to draw a roof just to show you guys that you can. And something interesting is going to happen with the roof. Hey, let's put in a chimney. Was that yes over there for the chimney? You're really happy that I put a chimney in? Okay. Cool.
We actually were.
Erase a little bit here. Now, you can see, I mean, I'm doing this really fast and again without a ruler, but can you see the house? Can you see the house? Okay, see the chimney? I mean, it's simple shapes, and then you can continue going through them and making them more and more complex, but that's really just a bunch of cubes. And the roof, because it's a triangle, makes you think, whoa, that's more complicated, but it's really not. The one thing I really want you to see about anything that goes above the horizon line is it still goes down to the vanishing point. So whenever something goes above the horizon line, what that means is it's now above the eye level of the viewer. Your horizon line is at your eye level. So if an object like a chimney or a taller building goes above that horizon line, now you're not going to be able to see the top of the object. Some people will try and draw the perspective exactly the same, even though something is up above. Okay, and you end up having these weird flying objects that are not going to the vanishing point. Okay, you see how that's kind of going off to its own perspective points? That doesn't work. That's not right. It would need to be like that. That's the correct way to do it, right? That's probably not completely correct because these should be smaller because they're going back to the vantage point. Let me show you one last thing. So when I say that anything can be drawn in perspective by putting it into a cube, I mean it. Even the letter S. So what I'm going to do is we're going to make a letter S. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to take this, I'm going to make a square, okay, like so, and I'm going to take the points that go away to it to the vanishing point and make it a kind of a thin rectangle. See that? Thank you. Okay? Now all I'm going to do is take this rectangle and I'm going to start rounding off the edges by first putting the S in it. So I'm going to take this and okay. And it takes a little time to get used to this, but an S is probably one of the hardest letters to draw in 3D. And I remember being a kid being really frustrated because I always wanted to do like a three-dimensional S that was really cool, and it was really difficult. And then I realized, you know what, if I put it into a box, okay, can we see this now? So I put the S in a box. I haven't done any perspective yet. I just rounded off the corners basically and made an S. Now I start to do the perspective. So now I'm going to do my vanishing points just like I might have before. Okay, from the edges of the S all the way back to the vanishing lines, or vanishing point. And then I'm going to, honestly, I'm going to fudge a few parts of it because sometimes you just gotta fudge it sometimes. Let me Sharpie this in so you guys can see it a little bit better. So now, after some scribbles and a little bit of erasing, what you see, boy, it's hard to draw at this angle, so I'm keeping it in the camera. Whoops. Is a three-dimensional S. All I did was put it into a box, guys, and you can still see the box around it. It's not that hard. And then I just round off the corners. So if you wanted to make a car that was a little less boxy, you still do the exact same procedure that I did for the box, but then you just round the corners off a little bit. And you know what? You just make it until it looks good. It's not like there's a formula for that. You just kind of make it until it looks good. That's one-point perspective. Now let me say a couple of quick things about the sketchbook assignment. It has some very specific lists in there for things that you should draw. It's got a follow the assignment sheet. Don't just do what I just did here. I'm just showing you lots of ideas. Follow the assignment sheet, read it. It's on the web if you lost your sketchbook sheet. I know that probably half of you did. So go online, you can download it in a PDF so that you can get all the sketchbooks. It's down a good bit now because we've done a couple demos and stuff since then. This will be on the web tonight as well, so that you can review this for the process. Any questions? All right then, that's it.